Hello, Barendipitous here with another board game shelf video. So this is one of two print and play Brawlhalla card games that I have. This one is not one that I created. It was made by a guy who named Roxtricity Roxtricity on Twitter, and I also made a Tabletop Simulator mod with his permission on here. So this is a game that created several years ago, probably back in like 2020 or something like that. I don't have the rules in here, but I kind of I sort of wrote down simplified rules on here. Basically, all you do it's essentially Uno with a couple of like battle mechanics to it. It plays just like Uno. Everyone starts with 7 cards. Each player starts with 25 hit points. Legend cards are optional. If you choose to play with legend cards, each player chooses one legend and plays the game with that legend's ability. And any legend cards not chosen are out of the game. You can play with 2 to 4 players, and yeah, Roxtricity, created in 2020. So here are some of the legend cards. So for example, Isaiah, so cannon cards inflict an additional 1 damage. This legend can play 1 additional card after playing a cannon card. Mordex is this legend can immediately play a second card after playing a Dark Hearts effect card. Petra is gauntlet cards inflict an additional 2 damage. Also skip the next turn of any player targeted by a gauntlet card, and so on and so forth. I don't think this was really play tested necessarily, but yeah, it's just kind of cool. I have played this game once with my wife, and I think there were still a couple of things that there were still a couple of edge cases where we weren't entirely sure how something would work exactly, or I'd have to, or something like that. But in general, it's pretty straightforward. Again, like I said, it's Uno, essentially. Most cards will have R, G, B, or Y on here to signify the color, and of course, a lot of these cards will have different effects. So for example, if you play a tilted card, then you can play a second card. That card now inflicts double damage. Or hit the deck. Shuffle the discard pile into the deck. The person who played this card declares a new color. So it's kind of like a sort of a wild card, and things like that, right? This game. So whenever I think of like a Brawlhalla card game, I usually, obviously, as the Brawlhalla lore master, I always think of lore. Like, how can we incorporate Brawlhalla lore into the game? And this doesn't really consider lore that much, if at all. Like, there's a little bit of Darkheart references in there, but it's just kind of like it's more focused on like the weapons and like podiums and like emotes, just like mechanics and cosmetics in the game, essentially, right? I do like chests, draw 2 cards and add it to your hand. So it's kind of thinking about the experience of playing the video game in mind more than the lore, which I can totally respect. But yeah, so there's weapons in here. Inflict 2 damage to all enemies and skip your next turn. Axe says inflict 3 damage to the next player. And so on and so forth. The reason why I have 2 boxes is that there's, just like with other print and play things I've basically sleeved. This is normal paper, and I've sleeved them with like, extra cards that I'm not going to use anyway. Like, we do have apples to apples, but this is just, we kind of like threw out a lot of cards that we're probably not going to use, and so that kind of helps give these cards a good like backing and everything. But yeah, I mean, if you couldn't tell already, these are apples to apples cards that my wife and I personally aren't really interested in playing, or we just don't really know the card well, know that the person, place, or thing well enough to be very meaningful to us without having to Google it. But yeah, I believe every single weapon is represented in here up to Orb, I believe. They even have a spell book in here, which is fun. Let's see. After playing this card, search the discard pile for any green card and play it immediately. But yeah, I believe there's at least 1 of each card for every single color. Dodge. When you're targeted by an attack, you can play this card over any color, reduce the damage taken by 3, and so on and so forth. So again, you play with these cards, and you basically play Uno, and like damage is dealt, and the last person standing wins, obviously, and then you can optionally play with these legend cards. So yeah, if I remember, I'm gonna put a link in the description that has that gives you access to the Tabletop Simulator mod, and I believe the game files that will let you print and play this game yourself, or play this on Tabletop Simulator if you have it. But yeah, it's, there have been like I've been in the Brawlhalla community at this point for like going on like I think, oh gosh, I think I'm kind of on my 6th year now. And there have been multiple attempts by me and other people to create a card game based on Brawlhalla. And although I certainly have been working on my own card game for the past year or so, this one right here is the first Brawlhalla card game that I have seen created by a Brawlhalla fan that actually is like playable and can be considered finished. Obviously, it could do with some refinement if Roxtricity wanted, but it is playable and it's good. It's good, simple fun, honestly. And honestly, the card game that I'm making, which will be the next video, the card game that I'm making, I had in mind like a simple card game to like that would be fun to play, like, between matches in a LAN or something like that. And honestly, you could do that with this game as well. As far as the name, it's just called Brawlhalla Card Game. I asked Roxtricity what he wanted to call it, and he just said just call it the Brawlhalla Card Game. That's not going to be the most unique name, of course, so that's why I kind of specify Brawlhalla Card Game by Roxtricity, made in 2020. But yeah, honestly, this is really good, and I'm glad that I could work with Roxtricity to kind of like. I think I'm probably the only person besides him who has ever really done anything with this game. He made it, of course, and I'm sure he's played it at least a few times. And again, with his permission, I made a tabletop simulator for this, and I've actually printed this physical version. But yeah, I like it. It's good. Like, basically using Uno mechanics and like adding some battle stuff to it is a really solid idea. I like it a lot. So I'm glad to have this. So. Thank you very much for watching, and also thank you to Roxtricity for making this and letting me, have fun with this. And until next time, all the best.